My name is Chloe Bennett. I'm 34 years old. I run a software development firm I built from my apartment 8 years ago. We're not Fortune 500, but we're stable, profitable, respected. Until recently, I thought my relationship was too. Daniel Harper is 32, a real estate agent. Charismatic, photogenic. The kind of man who could make strangers feel like old friends within minutes. We met at a mutual friend's wedding nearly 2 years ago. He told me I had the most intelligent smile he'd ever seen. I should have realized then that Daniel was always selling something. Last month, we took a week-long trip to a luxury beach resort. My treat. Ocean view suite, private balcony, champagne on arrival. It was supposed to be a celebration. My company had just finalized negotiations on what I told Daniel was a major client contract. He had closed the biggest property deal of his career. Perfect timing. The first 3 days were exactly what social media promises. Beach lounging, overpriced seafood, late-night conversations tangled in hotel sheets. He looked good in linen. I looked relaxed for the first time in months. But even then, small things whispered at the edge of my awareness. "Babe, you'd look incredible in something more fitted," he said while I packed for dinner one night. "You don't have to dress like you're pitching venture capital all the time." He laughed when he said it. So I did too. Night 4 was the party. Open bar, DJ remixing 2000s hits, torches flickering along the shoreline. Daniel was 4 margaritas in when he spotted a group of women from a recent real estate convention. They shrieked like long-lost siblings and pulled us into their circle. I'm not shy, just observant. I bought a round, asked polite questions, smiled when appropriate. Daniel got louder. One of the women, blonde, sculpted, wrapped in designer logos, asked how we met. At a wedding, Daniel slurred, leaning against me. She cleans up nice when she tries. Polite laughter. How long have you two been together? Almost 2 years, he said proudly. Then he grinned. My friends think I'm crazy for dating someone so far below my league. The air changed. It didn't explode. It dropped. Like pressure leaving a cabin mid-flight. He kept going. They're like, "Daniel, you could have anyone." He gestured at me loosely. "She's brilliant, sure, but she's quiet, doesn't dance. Her wardrobe is basically corporate armor." The women stared at their drinks. "And don't get me started on her apartment," he laughed. "All those nerdy movie props. One shelf of Star Wars junk. That junk is insured for more than his car. But hey," he added, tapping my shoulder, "she pays for everything, treats me like a king." There it was, the truth. Not drunk rambling, unfiltered positioning. I wasn't his partner. I was his upgrade package. He finally noticed the silence. "What?" he laughed. "She knows I'm joking, right, Chloe?" He leaned in to kiss me, tequila heavy on his breath. I gently removed his hand from my waist, stood, and walked away. No scene, no words. The ocean was quieter than my thoughts. I walked for an hour. This wasn't about alcohol. This was about how he saw me. Reliable, profitable, below him. I returned to the suite at 2:03 a.m. Daniel was sprawled across the bed, still in his party shirt, unconscious. I packed one suitcase, took photos of the room. Documentation is habit. Then I called the front desk and arranged transport. 20 minutes later, I checked into another resort. Ocean view again. This time alone. I paid for the week up front. Then I made 3 calls. Cancel meetings through Friday, I told my assistant. Route emergencies to Mark. Second call. My name is Chloe Bennett, I told my attorney. I need assistance in the morning. It's personal. Third call. I need to freeze a card immediately. By sunrise, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Daniel. Shiki missed calls. 1 voicemail. Chloe, where are you? My card got declined at breakfast and the hotel says the room isn't covered. Call me back, now. I sent 1 text. Someone will contact you shortly. An hour later, my attorney called him. I imagine his expression when a composed legal voice answered instead of mine. Ms. Bennett has vacated the shared accommodation following last night's events. The reservation has been modified. You have until 11 a.m. to check out. Further charges are your responsibility. He called 7 more times. I blocked him. What Daniel didn't know, the major client wasn't just a client. It was a merger. Acquisition finalized. 7-figure payout. Press release scheduled in 72 hours. Public record. Daniel had been pushing engagement conversations for months. I once caught him holding my grandmother's Tiffany ring box. Just looking. Now I understood. Timing isn't romance. It's strategy. On day 3, the merger announcement went live. My phone exploded. Congratulations. LinkedIn messages. Old colleagues resurfacing. And Daniel. Calling from a different number. "We need to talk," he said breathlessly. "I heard the news. What you think happened that night? It was taken out of context." Out of context. I let my attorney respond. Ms. Bennett considers the relationship terminated effective immediately. Further contact will be documented. Silence on the other end. For now. But storms rarely end after the first wave. And Daniel Harper was not finished. The first thing people don't tell you about sudden public success is this. It doesn't just attract congratulations. It attracts entitlement. By noon, the merger announcement was everywhere. Industry newsletters, LinkedIn posts, even a couple of tech blogs that loved turning founders into clickbait. Chloe Bennett's firm acquired a major deal. My phone buzzed so hard it felt like it was trying to jump out of my hand. I turned it face down on the hotel nightstand and went out onto the balcony. The ocean was calm, unbothered, like it didn't care who was winning and who was unraveling. Behind me, my laptop chimed with emails from investors, partners, people who suddenly remembered my name. And then, another call. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text popped up. Daniel, it's me. Please, just pick up. We can fix this. Fix this. As if what he'd done was a spill on a tablecloth and not a crack running straight through my chest. I typed one line, then deleted it. Typed again. Deleted. Instead, I forwarded the number to my attorney, because I knew Daniel, and I knew what came next. By that evening, Daniel was no longer pleading. He was performing. Security from my apartment building called me while I was still at the resort. Ms. Bennett, there's a man here demanding to see you. He says he's your partner. Partner. Even the word felt wrong now, like clothing that didn't fit. What is he doing? I asked, keeping my voice calm. He's loud, the guard admitted. And there are people in the lobby filming. Of course there were. Daniel never wasted an audience. Do not let him up, I said. I'm not home. He says he knows, the guard replied. He keeps shouting. You're punishing him because you got rich overnight. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. Listen carefully, I told the guard. I have an envelope prepared for him. It's labeled with his name. Please give him that. And then tell him he needs to leave immediately or you'll have to involve police. There was a pause. You already have something prepared? Yes, I said. Because I document everything. Because I don't do chaos. And because Daniel had mistaken my silence for weakness one too many times. The envelope wasn't thick. It wasn't dramatic. Just heavy in the way truth is heavy. Inside was a simple spreadsheet. Every dinner, every weekend trip, every babe, can you grab this for me purchase. The designer bag he needed for a showing. The watch he borrowed and never returned. The flights, the hotel upgrades, the spontaneous gifts he swore weren't about money. I hadn't made it out of bitterness. I'd made it because I was the kind of person who tracked details, who kept records, who didn't like not knowing where my resources went. It was a business habit, and now it was a weapon. At the bottom of the ledger, $46,832.07, and beneath it, a short note written in black ink. Consider your below-league experience paid in full. The guard called back 20 minutes later. Ms. Bennett, he said carefully, like he was speaking to someone holding a live wire. He opened it right here. And? He went very quiet, then he started saying it wasn't fair, that you're trying to humiliate him. I leaned back against the balcony railing and watched waves curl against the shore. No, I said softly. He humiliated me. I'm just making sure he remembers what it cost. The guard hesitated. He left, but he was crying. A strange sensation moved through me. Not satisfaction. Not guilt. Just a cold, clean clarity. Daniel didn't cry because he loved me. He cried because the world was watching him lose. 2 weeks later, I was back home. My apartment felt different. Lighter. Almost unfamiliar. Like my space had been holding its breath while Daniel lived in it. His key didn't work anymore. Locks changed. Security updated. His belongings, because yes, over 2 years, half his wardrobe had silently migrated into my closet, were boxed and placed in a storage unit. I sent him the access code. 1 month. After that, I'd donate it. I didn't owe him forever. I didn't even owe him closure. The merger was moving forward smoothly. I had meetings with the acquiring firm, negotiations about my new role, legal discussions that made my head hurt. And in the middle of all that, I put a down payment on a beachfront property. Not at the resort where my relationship died. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere that felt like mine. The day the delivery arrived, I was in my kitchen making coffee when the doorman buzzed. Package for you, Ms. Bennett. It's handwritten. Handwritten. That immediately narrowed down the suspects. I signed for it and set it on the counter. Cream envelope. My name written in Daniel's familiar script. Too polished. Too intentional. Like everything he did had been rehearsed. I opened it. Inside was a letter. And a check. For $46,832.07. Exactly. Down to the cent. My mouth went dry. I didn't need to read the letter to know what it said, but I did anyway. Chloe, I know you think I'm a monster. I know I hurt you. I swear I wasn't myself that night. I drank too much, and those women, my friends, kept pushing me, egging me on. They've poisoned my head with their materialistic values. I said things I didn't mean. I'm sending this check to prove I'm not after your money. I want you to see I'm serious about making things right. Please, let's talk. Let me fix this. I love you. The last line made me laugh out loud. Not a warm laugh. A sharp one. Because Daniel didn't love me. Daniel loved what being with me said about him. And now that the merger had turned me into a headline, he loved the idea of reclaiming that headline before someone else did. I stared at the check for a long time. It was perfect damage control. The kind of grand gesture that, if posted online, would get him sympathy. Look, I tried. I paid her back. She's the cold one. He wasn't just apologizing. He was rewriting the narrative. And Daniel was very good at narratives. So I did the only thing that wouldn't give him what he wanted. I refused to play. I folded the check back into the envelope, slipped the letter inside, and wrote one sentence on a yellow sticky note. No refunds necessary for services rendered. Best of luck in your future endeavors. Then I mailed it back. No signature. No emotion. No opening for conversation. For 2 days, my phone stayed quiet, and I almost believed it was over. Almost. Then my friend Tessa texted me a screenshot. Daniel's Instagram story. A black background. White text. Some women will abandon a good man over one mistake. Real love isn't that fragile. I stared at it, and something inside me shifted. Because that wasn't an apology. That was the first shot in a new war. And Daniel Harper had decided if he couldn't have me, he would punish me. Publicly. Slowly. And with an audience. If Daniel wanted an audience, he was going to get one. Just not the one he expected. The vague posting started small. Quotes about forgiveness, about pride, about strong women who forget how to be soft. He tagged me in old beach photos, the ones from the first 3 days of the vacation. Smiling, kissing, sunlit and happy. People who didn't know the full story began commenting. You two were perfect. Hope you work it out. Don't throw away 2 years over ego. Ego. That word kept appearing, as if self-respect were a personality flaw. I didn't respond. I documented. Screenshots, dates, timestamps. My therapist, yes, I had started seeing one, not because I was devastated, but because I wanted clarity, called it maintaining boundaries without escalation. Daniel called it being cold. Then he shifted tactics. Instead of vague quotes, he began contacting my friends directly. First, Tessa. Can you talk to Chloe? He messaged her. She's blowing this way out of proportion. It was a joke. Tessa replied with one sentence. Jokes are funny. He tried Mark next, my longtime friend and COO. Bro, Daniel wrote, forgetting he wasn't texting one of his real estate buddies. She's acting like I cheated. I just teased her. Mark sent me the screenshot with a single comment. He still thinks this is about teasing. What Daniel didn't know was that while I had been walking along the beach that night, trying to steady my breathing, he had been texting his own friend group. And one of those friends, Ryan's girlfriend, was not impressed. She forwarded everything. There it was. Black and white. Daniel. She's so sensitive. I just said what everyone thinks. Daniel. Now she's hiding at another hotel like a child while I'm stuck with a $2,000 bill. Everyone thinks. That phrase again. The narrative in his head was consistent. He hadn't humiliated me. He'd spoken a shared truth, and I'd overreacted. Ryan shut him down immediately. The guys always thought you were slumming it with her, not the other way around. That message must have stung. Because 2 days later, Daniel escalated again. This time he showed up at my office. Reception called me. Ms. Bennett, there's a man here insisting on seeing you. He says it's urgent. Daniel Harper? I asked. Yes, of course. He wasn't going to let the story end quietly. I considered going down, facing him, letting him see that I wasn't shaken. But I realized something important. Daniel thrived on reactions. Anger, tears, public scenes. Silence was what destabilized him. So instead of going down, I made a call. 5 minutes later, Daniel was escorted into a conference room. Not to see me. To see my attorney. When I watched the security footage later, I noticed something. He walked in confidently. Smiling even, like he was about to close a deal. When he saw my attorney sitting there instead of me, his shoulders dropped. The smile vanished. The meeting lasted 8 minutes. He refused to sign the cease and desist letter, but he left without shouting. Without theatrics, just smaller. I thought that would be the end of it. But life, like Daniel, rarely stops at the first boundary. 3 days later, I received an email through my company's website. Subject line, apology from the resort party. It was from one of the women at the table that night. Not the blonde one, the brunette who had barely spoken. Her name was Melissa. She wrote, "Chloe, I wanted to apologize for not saying something that night. I was uncomfortable, and I should have spoken up." I stared at the message for a long time before continuing. "You should know something," she wrote. "Daniel had been talking about you all day before the party. He wasn't embarrassed by you. He was bragging." That made me pause. Bragging? He kept mentioning your company, saying big things were coming, that he had insider knowledge, that being with you positioned him ahead of the curve. It felt like networking more than love. Networking. The word hit harder than below my league, because it reframed everything. Daniel hadn't been ashamed of me. He had been leveraging me. He wasn't dating down. He was selling up. And when he drank too much, the positioning slipped. What came out wasn't insecurity. It was hierarchy. He needed to be seen as superior, even if the data didn't support it. The final blow came from his professional circle. When the official merger details went public, they clarified something important. I hadn't just landed a big client. My company was being acquired for a figure significantly higher than industry rumors suggested, which meant Daniel's casual claims of inside access and special insight were suddenly questionable. Colleagues began asking him for clarification. Apparently, he had implied involvement, implied influence, implied proximity to confidential details. And when the numbers came out, numbers he clearly hadn't known, he looked foolish, professionally embarrassed, on top of personally rejected. He had tried to use me as a status credential. Instead, he became a cautionary tale. A week later, the social media posts stopped. No more quotes. No more tagging. No more good man monologues. Silence. But I didn't mistake it for growth. Daniel wasn't reflecting. He was recalibrating. And for the first time since the beach, I felt something close to relief. Not because he was gone, but because the illusion was. The man I thought I loved, the supportive, ambitious partner who celebrated my success, had never really existed. There had only been a mirror, and he had always been adjusting it to reflect himself. That night I stood in my living room. My vintage movie props, yes, including the so-called Star Wars junk, were displayed more prominently now. Not hidden, not minimized. Valuable not because of market appraisal, but because they were mine. My phone buzzed. A final message from an unknown number. "You didn't have to destroy me to prove a point." I didn't respond, because I hadn't destroyed him. I had simply walked away. And sometimes, when someone builds their identity around what you provide, walking away feels like demolition. 16 days after the beach. That's how long it took for the dust to settle. Not the emotional dust. That cleared the night I walked away. The social dust. The whispers. The curiosity. The quiet recalibration of who was the villain and who was the victim. By then, Daniel had stopped posting, stopped tagging, stopped performing heartbreak for an audience. What he hadn't stopped doing, however, was trying to quietly repair his image. And that's when the second wave hit. I was in my new office, technically still mine, though the company now had a parent organization, when Melissa, the woman from the resort table, emailed again. "I debated whether to tell you this," she wrote, "but I think you deserve the full picture." Apparently, Daniel hadn't just bragged about me that day. He'd been pitching himself. He'd told those women he had insider awareness of a massive tech acquisition, that he was strategically positioned. That dating me gave him unique access. He implied proximity to confidential information, which in his world translated to power. But when the press release dropped and the real numbers surfaced, it became painfully obvious he hadn't known anything concrete. Some of the women at that table worked with investors. Word travels fast in those circles. Daniel didn't just lose a girlfriend. He lost credibility, professionally. And in real estate, credibility is currency. That explains something. 3 days after the merger went public, one of his listings had mysteriously disappeared from his social media. A luxury condo he'd been aggressively promoting. I didn't ask questions. I didn't dig, but I knew. Daniel had tried to leverage access he didn't have. And when the truth surfaced, the story collapsed. He hadn't been embarrassed by me at the beach. He'd been trying to establish dominance in front of potential business contacts, and alcohol loosened the filter. He reduced me publicly to elevate himself privately. That wasn't a joke. That was strategy. Therapy gave me language for what I'd experienced. Status-based attachment, my therapist called it. Daniel wasn't in love with me. He was in love with being adjacent to what I represented. Stability, growth, upward mobility. He'd been measuring my grandmother's Tiffany ring, not because he cherished legacy, but because he wanted the security of locking in the asset before upgrading. It sounds cold when I phrase it that way, but clarity often does. The storage unit notice arrived in my inbox on day 29. Reminder, items will be donated if not retrieved. Daniel hadn't gone. Not once. No angry messages, no dramatic pickup. Just silence. I donated the clothes, the watches, the framed photos he'd left behind. I kept nothing. Not even the sweater I used to steal when I was cold. That chapter did not deserve souvenirs. Meanwhile, the beachfront property closed. It wasn't flashy. No paparazzi. No champagne toast. Just a quiet signing at a wooden desk overlooking the water. When the keys slid across to me, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not revenge. Peace. Because the house wasn't a statement to Daniel. It wasn't a look what you lost. It was a look what I built. Alone. A few mutual acquaintances tried to play mediator. He's embarrassed, one said gently over coffee. He's saying he panicked because he felt inferior. Inferior. The irony almost made me smile. At the party, he'd called me below his league. Now, privately, he claimed insecurity. Both narratives centered on one thing. Him. His perception. His pride. His image. There had never been space for me in that equation. 2 weeks later, Daniel sent one final message. No drama this time. No public post. Just a simple text from a number I hadn't blocked. I lost more than you know. I read it twice. Then I deleted it. Because he was right. He had lost something. But not what he thought. He hadn't lost wealth, or opportunity, or even access. He had lost the version of me who tolerated disrespect in exchange for potential. And that version was not coming back. Next spring, I'm going to Japan. Solo. Daniel always said it was too niche, too quiet, not Instagrammable enough, which in hindsight tells you everything. Some things are valuable not because they impress other people, but because they feel aligned with who you are. My vintage movie props are displayed openly now, not minimized, not joked about. They're insured, cataloged, and appreciated. Much like my self-respect. People still ask if I regret not trying harder. 2 years is a long time, they say. Maybe. But respect is not a negotiation. It's a baseline. If a friend told me their partner publicly reduced them to a financial convenience, mocked their personality, and then blamed alcohol, I know exactly what advice I'd give. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't confrontation. It's departure. Daniel thought I destroyed him. I didn't. I removed access. And when someone builds their confidence on proximity to your success, access feels like oxygen.